What's up, guys? Brandon with GrizzlyWorks RC, and in this video just kind of going to be running through the truck a little bit. I've already started running through it. As you can see, I do have some sliders that I've come up with on here, so some kind of they'll work as trays as well for the electronics, which is where I'm going to be putting the electronics on here. These will be up in the store soon. I'm trying to figure out the best material to make those out of right now, and also just testing them on this truck before I put them out. But those will be available soon. I've run through the axles already, found out some things about it. So with the portals, they are all metal gears inside the portals. There are no bearings though, it's all bushings, and all but one of them was missing grease. So and the one that did have grease in it, it's super thin grease that almost turns to a liquid when it starts to come in contact with stuff. So pulled all that out of there. I really like this. This is a Team Losi high pressure grease. This stuff works really nice. It's fairly inexpensive. I don't know. Let's see. Will it come up on? There we go. High pressure grease. I like this stuff from Team Losi. Another really good grease, which you can also find, is this blue grease right here. This is actually from Vanquish products. It came with my VS410 kit that I bought. That grease actually works really well too. It's a little bit thinner than the black grease that's there. But anyway, so yeah, pulled the portals apart, greased those. I went ahead and pulled the differentials apart and confirmed it's all metal gears in the differentials as well. Also all bushings, no bearings in there. And there was no grease in the differentials. So, well, there was like just a little drop of grease, and it was not actually on the gears. It was just on the shaft inside there. Went ahead and greased those properly, got them all covered so that the gears have some grease in there. They, once I actually can kind of check now, they are much quieter and smoother now with all that in there. So that's a good thing. Got that going. I have the transmission out of it right now. Pulled the transmission apart. It is also all metal gears, and there was also grease in there. It felt different than the grease that was in the axles, but again, it turned to a liquid as soon as I touched it. And even some of the gears had it was like a liquid that was on them. It wasn't a grease. So I'm definitely putting some heavier grease in there as well. While I'm doing all this, I figured I'd go ahead and run through setting up the shocks with you as well, as far as filling them with oil, making sure they're bled properly, and then putting them all back together and getting them on the truck. So first off is taking the shocks off. I'm just going to do one of them for this video, and then I'll do the rest off camera. But if you put something in here, you can actually pry this lower one off. It just pops right out. Just be careful. You don't want to do too much pressure because you don't want to break the plastic that's on there. But this just pops right off of there. That way you don't have to take this screw out. The top one you will have to take apart though. So just grab something to grip the nut that's on the back side and unscrew it. And you don't need to pop this one out of there. That can stay on there, but we will have to disassemble this shock to get it bled and everything. So to do that, pull the spring up, pull your spring housing or your spring seat up, and then pull that off. Just pops right off of there. It's not screwed in or anything like that. And the spring drops right off the bottom. This is also how you would change your springs if you wanted to put the heavier springs that come with the truck on there. These already come with all the O-rings in them, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm not sure of how much oil is in these, honestly. It feels like there's really nothing in there, but we'll find out in just a second. So undo, or not undo, but loosen that collar, grip this pretty tight, and then this will unscrew from here. And there is oil in there, but it has tons of bubbles in it, and it's probably not doing much because it did not feel like it was really damped at all. So use a paper towel, flip it upside down, and then push that all the way in, and that'll get most of your oil out of there. Yeah, there's not a whole lot in there. It was definitely not filled to the capacity. But once that's all out of there, you can see inside there. I am using, this is, I believe, a 30 weight oil. I don't remember for sure. But all you want to do, you want to use, with these small shocks, you want to use something that you can do drops at a time, because these don't take a ton of oil. I want to fill it up to almost the top, and then slowly bring the shock all the way to a compressed position. And then you take your cap, which has a seal inside there. Man, this camera does not want to focus today. And then you're going to have some leakage, but that's okay. And then just tighten this down. So you should get some smooth movement through there. There's a little bit of leakage that this had, but not much. And then just wipe off the excess. What you don't want is you don't want it to be like locked up, like you can't compress it all the way or you can't pull it out all the way. This has nice smooth movement through the full range. Throw the spring back on, and then throw your spring seat on. These only go on one way. They pop on and then drop all the way down. There's a little notch right there. Little notch there. Come on, focus. There we go, right there. There's a little notch that holds the spring seat in place so that it doesn't twist around. But now we have nice smooth movement of our shock instead of that fast movement that it had before. I think the problem that it had before is it just wasn't completely filled. But these shocks, like I said, only take a couple drops of oil. They don't need a ton. Just fill it up till it's almost to the top, and then put that top cap on, and make sure that everything is fully compressed like this when you're doing it, and you should be good. All right, so got all the shocks done. Everything's put back together. Got all the electronics back in here. As you can see with these sliders that I did, can fit your electronics on there, and they fit just inside the body of the truck, which is nice. So they tuck up in there. It gets them a little bit lower and further forward, so you get a little more of your weight bias forward. I'm using the stock battery tray. I tried doing some different stuff with battery trays, and just the cleanest setup was with the stock tray. The battery fits in here so tight that you don't actually even need to use these straps. I've rolled the truck over with the battery not being strapped in, and the battery hasn't moved. The only thing I use it for is to hold down the wires for the battery. It has a pretty nice setup now. Once the battery's in the back, I went ahead and tightened down these the suspension adjusters there, the collars, the spring collars, just to give a little bit more spring tension on the back, because that does add quite a bit of weight back here. I don't have balance scales to kind of test it, but judging by where the center is on here of the truck and the center of gravity, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably a little bit more than 50% weight up front with the rest in the back, which you do want a little bit of front bias. I'd like to get a little bit more front bias in that, but that's just going to come with testing and tuning and weight and figuring out where weight goes. Haven't chopped the chassis yet. I am going to chop this off. I need to get more cutoff discs for my Dremel, and then I will go ahead and cut this off, grind it down, put some black paint on there to just kind of clean it up a little bit. I'm even considering cutting the back section off. It'll depend on, once I go as low as I'm going to, that rear axle is really close to hitting these. I don't know if I go all the way down if it'll actually hit, though. I haven't tested that. But as far as where I have the shocks currently set up, fourth hole from the bottom. When I got the truck, they were actually, I think, set either all the way up at the top or one down from the top. Let's see if I can see the marks on here from where it was originally set up. Actually, they were on the third hole from the top, the front and rear. So I went down a little bit. That gives it a little bit more flex. It allows everything to move a little more and takes a little bit of the weight off of the, or takes a little bit of the stress off the spring, so that you get a little bit more movement out of it. Before setting them in that orientation, I could only flex up to 2 tires. Once I did that way, I was able to get 3. And while I do have bigger tires on here right now, even with the smaller tires on there, I was able to do 3 tires stacked. So it's not a very scientific measurement, but it was a noticeable change, a noticeable difference, and the truck actually sits a bit lower now too. So I haven't dropped the body height yet because I'm going to have to do some trimming on the body to do that. But there is some adjustment there to drop the body height a little bit lower. And now that the electronics are on the side, I don't have to worry about the electronics hitting the bed of the truck when, because back here they were resting right up against the bed. But with everything in there, fits nice and tight to the body without touching. And so it can actually slide off of these, and then it also gives a place to reposition your electronics. Now that everything is on the truck though, sits nice and low. I think it has a pretty good stance now. I'd like to get it just a little bit lower than that, but I think it's in a good place. And until I cut the chassis up a little bit, I can't go any lower with these steering links. And so final thing that I've done to it so far, I did find some 1-inch wheels that fit it. These are the Trial Classic wheels. And if you, depending on which ones you purchase, you can purchase them with, they'll come with 2 different hub sizes. So there's this little hub here, but then it comes with an extended hub size, which I believe is a +5 millimeter. And that sets these out so that there's about 1.5 millimeters of clearance so it doesn't touch the portal. So it lets you run a 1-inch wheel with some big tires so you get some nice squish on the tire. Right now I'm running it with the Little Guy Racing gripper tires. We'll see how those do on here. But for now, that's where it's at. And I'll take it out and get some test runs on it and give you my thoughts on how it went. All right, so as you can see from that video, huge performance gain between everything that was done with tires and wheels, greasing everything that should have grease on it, which also made the truck a lot quieter than it was before. Everything seemed to run a little bit smoother as well. The other thing that I did to drop some weight off the top was I pulled off the rack that goes on the back with the lights. So this rack that's normally back here, pulled that off. This thing actually it's not that heavy, but it's all weight that's up top, so it's all gonna hurt performance because any weight that you add up top is weight that you have to compensate for down low. The less weight you have to compensate for, the better performance you're gonna have for the truck. With the transmission, everything runs nice and smooth now. There's no grinding noises that come out of it like I was getting before. Same with the portals and the differentials, which somewhere in that line, if not everywhere in those gears, I was getting some nasty grinding noises, and just you could tell it was metal on metal without any grease in there. Now that that's all fixed, it runs nice and smooth. Tires are good. Even when they were wet, they did pretty good on the rocks. There were a couple of places that you saw that it just didn't have traction and just spun tires, but tire placement plays a role there. And once I got it off just being on the slick parts of the rock, it climbed right up. So also it didn't roll at all that run, where the first run that I did, it rolled quite a bit. It's a good truck for sure. It's a lot better performance than any other 1/18th or 1/24 scale that you get out of the box. It's a better performer. The wheels and tires are the only thing that I spent money on. The sliders are aftermarket as well, which again, I'll have more info on those when they're actually available. I'm still doing testing on them right now. But even just out of the box, if you can add a little bit of weight to the wheels and tires, this thing will perform great. I did see that Hobby Plus sells wheel weights that can be installed into the stock wheels and tires. That would probably give you really good performance if you don't mind the look of the stock wheels and tires. Because those tires are decently soft rubber. They're just not super aggressive. Not that these are, but these are a little bit softer rubber than the stock ones. But yeah, I could see with some break-in, maybe spinning them on some sandpaper to eat into the rubber a little bit and get to the softer rubber. Those stock tires would probably be pretty good. But I just don't like a 1.2 inch wheel, and I wanted to have more sidewall so I could have the tires conform to the rocks a little bit better. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Drop a like or dislike and let me know why. Yeah, thanks for watching.